You ever stumble upon something unexpected that completely changes how you see the world?
Oh, definitely.
Today, you and I are going to do just that as we explore the Dead Sea Scrolls. For anyone intrigued by ancient mysteries, these aren't just old documents. They're kind of a direct line to understanding pivotal moments in religious history.
That's right. And forget dry history books. These scrolls offer us a vibrant, first-hand look into the beliefs surrounding the Messiah, the, dramatic expectations for the end of days, and even the concepts of a spiritual realm, ideas that have profoundly influenced Western thought.
Okay, so picture this. 1947, a seemingly ordinary day near the Dead Sea. A Bedouin shepherd is searching for a lost goat. Classic story, right?
Right, the lost goat. Happens all the time, I guess.
He tosses a stone into a nearby cave, maybe hoping to spook it out. And instead of a bleat, he hears pottery shattering.
Correct. Yeah, that accidental throw, it just unlocked this incredible discovery.
Incredibles is the word.
Precisely. Inside that cave, and then in, many others soon after in the Qumran area, archaeologists unearthed thousands and thousands of fragments from ancient scrolls.
Thousands.
Yeah, imagine these writings had been preserved for nearly 2 millennia in simple clay jars wrapped up in linen. It's really a testament to how important they must have been back then.
It's almost a paradox, isn't it?
Yeah.
Dead Sea Scrolls, words full of life found near a sea where, nothing lives.
Yeah, the irony is definitely there.
And the sheer volume is staggering. We're talking about pieces from almost every book of the Hebrew Bible, alongside a vast collection of previously unknown texts, some dating back to 250 BCE, that's way before the time of Jesus. This random discovery basically gave us an ancient library.
Exactly, an unexpected library. And our goal in this deep dive is to pull out the most, significant insights from these fragments. We want to understand what they tell us about the established scriptures, the unique beliefs of the community that likely created and safeguarded them, their intense anticipation of a Messiah, and their powerful visions of the apocalypse.
So when we talk about the scrolls, it wasn't just like one complete book they found, was it? What was the actual makeup of this discovery?
No, not at all. It was a highly diverse collection, lots of fragments. But yes, remarkably, they did find ancient copies of familiar biblical books.
Like which ones?
Well, the book of Isaiah, for instance, was discovered almost entirely intact, which is just
Intact after 2,000 years.
Pretty much. And what's striking is how closely it resembles the Isaiah we read today. That highlights the careful transmission of these, foundational texts over centuries.
That's amazing.
That in itself is a major insight into the reliability, or at least the careful copying, of ancient scripture.
That's amazing to think about, that these core prophecies and stories have been passed down so accurately through all that time. But you also mentioned texts that were completely unknown before. What can we learn from those?
Right, and these previously lost writings, they offer us a fascinating glimpse into the diverse religious landscape of the time. A significant portion seems to originate from a specific community living at Qumran,
Okay.
believed by most scholars to be the Essenes. This was a Jewish sect known for its very strict adherence to ritual purity. They often chose a life of isolation to focus on intense spiritual devotion.
The Essenes. I've heard of them. Very devout.
Extremely. So these scrolls provide a direct window into the specific beliefs and practices of this group, which really enriches our understanding of Judaism in that era. It wasn't monolithic.
So it's like finding the private theological documents, the rule book maybe, of a group from over 2,000 years ago.
Kind of, yeah. And some of these texts actually present different perspectives on stories we thought we knew well from the Bible.
Really? Like what?
Well, consider the Book of Jubilees, sometimes called the Lesser Genesis.
Lesser Genesis.
This text essentially retells parts of Genesis and Exodus, but it expands significantly on the narratives, adding all these extra details about the early patriarchs.
More stories.
Yeah, but what's particularly insightful here is its strong emphasis on a very precise 364-day solar calendar.
A solar calendar? Wait, I thought the Jewish calendar was lunar.
It is, largely, especially the one used for temple worship back then, and that's the point.
Okay. So what was the significance of their solar calendar?
Well, the Essenes, or the Qumran group, believed this solar calendar was divinely ordained, maybe even revealed by angels. They saw it as absolutely crucial for aligning their lives and worship with the natural rhythms God established.
So it wasn't just about dates.
Not at all. This put them directly at odds with the lunar calendar used in the temple in Jerusalem. They felt the lunar calendar disrupted the proper timing of festivals and Sabbaths, leading to impurity in worship.
Impurity. Because the dates were off.
In their view, yes. Their adherence to the solar calendar, therefore, wasn't just about timekeeping. It was a fundamental theological statement about the correct way to relate to God. It reveals a camp insight into the internal divisions and, differing interpretations within Judaism at the time.
Wow. So a disagreement over something as seemingly practical as a calendar actually reflected a deep theological divide, like a really deep one.
Precisely. It underscores the Essenes' commitment to what they believed was the authentic and pure expression of their faith. Now, shifting our focus a bit to their vision of the future. The scrolls contain incredibly detailed and, frankly, dramatic accounts of the end times.
Ah, yes, the apocalyptic stuff. The War Scroll is a famous example, right? What makes it so noteworthy?
Its level of detail is just astonishing. Well, the Bible speaks of final battles, Armageddon and such.
Right.
The War Scroll provides what reads like an almost tactical manual for a final cosmic war. It describes the sons of light, that's the Essenes and other righteous folks, aided by divine forces.
The good guys.
Right. Engaging in battle with the sons of darkness, representing evil powers, including, likely, Rome, and demonic figures like Belial.
Belial. Sounds ominous.
Definitely a chief demon figure for them. The key insight here is the Essenes' belief that they themselves would play a direct, active role in this ultimate conflict.
A manual. You mean it outlines specific military-style organization and strategies, like literally?
Exactly. It details the organization of troops, the specific calls to be made by different trumpets, even the design of their armor and weaponry, banners, spears, everything.
Wow.
This is a stark contrast to the more symbolic or metaphorical language we often find in biblical books like Revelation or Ephesians when discussing spiritual warfare.
Yeah, that's very different.
The War Scroll presents a very literal, almost physical battle plan, reflecting the Essenes' intense belief that the end was near, like really near, and required concrete preparation.
And it wasn't just about human armies clashing, was it? They expected God to step in directly.
Oh, absolutely. The scroll vividly describes divine intervention, plagues, earthquakes, celestial signs, fire from heaven, all designed to weaken the forces of darkness and ensure the victory of the sons of light. It was envisioned as a complete cosmic upheaval.
Total war, heavens and earth involved.
You got it. Now, moving from this dramatic battle to the figures who would lead the righteous, the Dead Sea Scrolls offer a unique perspective on the Messiah.
Messiah's plural. That's a concept not usually emphasized in standard biblical teachings. What do they believe?
Yeah, it's fascinating. The Essenes seem to have anticipated two messiahs. A priestly messiah descended from Aaron.
Aaron, Moses' brother, the first high priest.
Okay. And a royal warrior messiah from the lineage of David, the kingly line.
Two different figures.
Apparently so. The priestly messiah's primary role was to restore the purity of temple worship and guide the community in spiritual law. This really highlights their concern with what they saw as corruption in the existing temple practices back in Jerusalem.
Right, tying back to the calendar issue and purity. Makes sense.
Ah.
And the other Messiah, the royal one, what was his job?
He was expected to be a political and military leader, the one who would liberate Israel from its oppressors, probably Rome at that time, and establish God's righteous kingdom on earth.
So one spiritual leader, one kingly warrior.
That seems to be the idea. Now, while the concept of two distinct messiahs isn't explicitly laid out like that in the Hebrew Bible we have today, some scholars see potential hints or allusions in texts like Zechariah 4, which mentions two anointed figures, and maybe Psalm 110, which speaks of a figure with both priestly and kingly authority, though usually interpreted as one person. For the Essenes, these two figures likely represented the dual aspects of their hope for redemption, spiritual renewal, and national liberation.
That's a fascinating divergence in messianic thought.
Yeah.
Very specific. And it seems the scrolls also elevate certain biblical figures to a more prominent status, right? Like Melchizedek, he's kind of a mysterious figure in the Old Testament.
Exactly. Melchizedek. He pops up briefly in Genesis as a king and priest who blesses Abraham. Pretty enigmatic.
Yeah, King of Salem, priest of God Most High. Then he kind of vanishes.
Well, not in the scrolls. The scroll of Melchizedek takes this figure and assigns him a central, almost divine role in the end times.
Divine?
Well, certainly heavenly and highly exalted. In this text, Melchizedek is portrayed as a heavenly judge and high priest who will return to proclaim liberty and enact divine justice. This reveals a significant development in how certain biblical figures were interpreted and their roles expanded within this specific community's theology.
That's quite an upgrade from a brief appearance in Genesis.
Yeah.
How does this understanding of Melchizedek compare to the Bible's own portrayal?
Well, the Bible introduces Melchizedek, notes his unique eternal priesthood, but offers limited details. The New Testament book of Hebrews draws theological connections between Melchizedek's priesthood and that of Jesus, setting up a typology.
Right, a priest forever in the order of Melchizedek.
Exactly. But the scroll of Melchizedek goes much further. It depicts him as an eschatological redeemer, a figure who brings salvation in the end times, who will even defeat Belial, the leader of demons.
So Melchizedek fights the main demon. Wow.
Yeah. The Essenes believed Melchizedek would return specifically on the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur, to offer forgiveness to the righteous and usher in the final kingdom. He becomes this huge key player in their understanding of God's ultimate plan.
So instead of just the singular Messiah figure we often think of, they had this complex picture with two Messiahs and a super important Melchizedek leading the charge into the final era. It really gives you a different perspective on their eschatology, their end times beliefs.
Totally different. Much more populated, you might say.
What about their vision of paradise? After the battle, after Melchizedek and the Messiahs do their thing, did the scrolls describe what the ultimate state of being would be like for the righteous?
Oh, yes. The New Jerusalem text offers a breathtakingly detailed vision of an immense utopian city that would descend from heaven.
Descend from heaven?
Yeah, descend from heaven to become the eternal dwelling place for the righteous. Now, you can certainly find parallels with the description of the New Jerusalem in the book of Revelation 21 in the New Testament.
Right, the city four square, gates of pearl.
But the Dead Sea Scrolls provide a wealth of additional specifics, dimensions, materials, layout. It really shows how influential and incredibly imaginative their apocalyptic expectations were.
More specifics, like what kind of details did they include that maybe aren't in Revelation?
It describes the city as having 12 gates, specifically designated for each of the tribes of Israel, and provides precise, almost architectural measurements for its overall size and layout. Huge dimensions.
Like blueprints from heaven.
Almost, yeah. It also mentions angelic guards stationed at each gate and emphasizes that the city's light source wouldn't be the sun or moon, but the very glory of God itself. Constant divine light.
No need for lamps then?
Nope. And for the Essenes, this wasn't just, a symbolic hope. They believed their own commitment to purity and strict adherence to God's laws would ultimately grant them entry into this magnificent city. It was a tangible reward they were striving for every day.
It sounds like they had a very clear and almost architectural blueprint for their eternal reward. And it wasn't just about a physical city, was it? The scrolls also seem to delve pretty deeply into the realm of angels and demons, the unseen world.
They absolutely do. The scrolls provide elaborate descriptions of both angels and demons. Angels weren't just messengers in their worldview.
Like Gabriel or Michael in the Bible.
Well, yes, but also much more. They were powerful, even militaristic beings who would actively fight alongside the righteous in that final battle we talked about. The Sons of Light had angelic backup.
Part of the army.
Exactly. The Essenes believed they were constantly under the observation and protection of these angelic forces who even, get this, kept a record of their good deeds.
Wow, angels as observers and recorders.
Yeah, and they also outlined specific hierarchies within the angelic realm. Different ranks, different roles. This adds significant depth to the biblical understanding of the spiritual forces at play in the world.
So almost like a celestial counterpart to their own structured community with ranks and roles.
Precisely, a mirror image in a way. And on the opposing side, the scrolls also meticulously describe demonic entities, led by Belial, portrayed as actively working to corrupt humanity and thwart God's plans.
So they were very aware of evil forces.
Acutely aware. This paints a much more vivid picture of the spiritual battles the Essenes believed were constantly ongoing, adding a layer of intensity, maybe even pressure, to their daily lives.
It really sounds like their entire way of life, everything they did, was shaped by this intense anticipation of the end times and their specific role within it. How did these beliefs translate into their everyday actions? What did they do?
Well, that's the crux of it. For the Essenes, the scrolls weren't just theological treatises to be studied. They were a practical guide, a blueprint for living in preparation for this coming kingdom.
Well, lifestyle manual.
Totally. This belief system permeated every aspect of their existence. They deliberately separated themselves from mainstream Jewish society in Jerusalem and elsewhere, which they viewed as having become corrupted.
Right, the temple, the calendar.
Exactly. To establish their own isolated communities, like the one at Qumran, this separation was a tangible expression of their beliefs. Action followed belief.
A kind of intentional spiritual retreat from the world.
In a way, yes, a very disciplined one. They adhered to incredibly strict purity laws, often going beyond even the requirements laid out in the Hebrew Bible. Ritual cleansing before meals was a regular practice, symbolizing their commitment to spiritual cleanliness.
Constant washing.
Seems like it. They also practiced communal living, sharing their possessions to foster unity and brotherhood. No private property, essentially.
Shared everything.
That seems to be the model for many of them. And interestingly, some within the Essene community appear to have practiced celibacy, dedicating themselves entirely to spiritual pursuits without the perceived distractions of family life. Though maybe not all of them did.
That's a profound level of commitment. Self-denial, isolation, intense rules. What was the ultimate motivation behind these pretty radical choices?
Fundamentally, their unwavering hope in the imminent arrival of God's kingdom was central. It drove everything.
They really thought it was coming soon.
They seemed convinced. They believed that their withdrawal from society, their rigorous pursuit of purity, their communal lifestyle, and their intense study of sacred texts, especially the prophecies in those scrolls, were all essential steps.
Steps towards what?
Towards gaining insight into God's will and preparing themselves, purifying themselves, to be among the righteous when the final judgment arrived and the sons of light prevailed. They saw their way of life as a direct response to the apocalyptic prophecies they found and treasured in the scrolls. This intense anticipation fueled their unique practices.
So the Dead Sea Scrolls offer us so much more than just ancient history, don't they? They provide this powerful glimpse into the mindset of a community who really believed they were living in the final chapter of human history.
Yeah.
Completely dedicated to their faith and their interpretation of what was coming.
Exactly. They stand as this compelling example of a group deeply committed to their interpretation of Scripture and living with an unwavering expectation for the future. Whether they were right or wrong about the timing, their dedication is something else.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? Considering the Essenes' absolute dedication, the intensity of their hope, their meticulous preparation, what aspects of their approach, maybe stripped of the specifics of their time, might still hold some resonance for us as we navigate the complexities and uncertainties of our own world?
That's a profound question to wrestle with. I mean, these ancient texts, they challenge our contemporary perspectives on faith, definitely. On our own definitions of purity, whatever that means to us now.
Yeah.
The importance of community, especially in the face of challenges, and how we each envision and hope for the future.
It's a powerful reminder, I think, that these scrolls, discovered quite by accident by a shepherd looking for a goat,
Yeah, just amazing.
continue to offer deep insights into the fundamental human search for meaning, the enduring power of belief, and that intricate intersection of history and spirituality. Definitely something to keep considering long after our deep dive today.